Hi, everybody, and welcome to New Earth Podcast. I'm delighted to have with me the lovely Dominique Mali today, and we're going to be talking about New Earth alchemy. Dominique is a teacher, healer, and creator of source code alchemy. So we're delighted to have her with us today. Welcome, Dominique.
Thanks, Sarah. It's really nice to be here.
Fabulous. So before we start talking about how you got into doing this work, if you could just tell us a little bit about your background and your story of how you came to be doing it.
Well, I'm Canadian and I was a musician in my early life. I lived in New York for a while trying to get a record deal. And then I moved to London and things started shifting for me. I started receiving a lot of healing on myself. And then one day, after doing some light body work, I just decided to drop the music, which had been my whole identity. And strangely enough, a lot of healers that I'd worked with were very dubious about my musical ambitions. They saw the healer in me. And every time I kept on saying, no, I want the record deal, they'd be like, really? Um, anyway, so I let that go, and just to fill my time, because when you let go of a passion like music, it's quite a heavy process. And so I thought I'll take a reflexology course. And during that course, a woman came up to me and gave me a book on the metamorphic technique. And metamorphic technique is also working on the feet, but it is much more spiritual and philosophical. And I really took to it. So it turned out that the guy teaching, I was living in North London and he was living in Balham, South London. So I just had to jump on the tube and go to this workshop. And he became a bit of a mentor for me. So I ended up teaching workshops in London and India, Australia, the States, like basically all over the place for 11 years. And that was really sort of a mentorship for me. You know, I really sort of learned how to teach, learned how to speak, and learned a lot about consciousness, basically. And during that time, I was collaborating with a friend, a colleague who was a kinesiologist. And we had this insight that everything was energy. And whenever we had an insight, we would muscle test it to see if this is correct. And we started downloading this system. And always we were working on, is this truth? Are we in 100% truth with our ideas? So we would meet 3 days a week, sit and meditate, and we would both get insights about how the energy body worked and how it created our reality, and how we as practitioners could shift it by shifting the vibration of the client. And we worked for 5 years. And then some strange interference came in one day where we both sat down to meditate, and she said, I'm stepping out of the work. And I said, my message was, don't worry, you'll be fine. And then we went to look at our website and it was completely corrupted, like beyond repair. It was just zeros and ones. So something was, either it was meant to be, or some friends suggested that there were some sort of dark energies that didn't want this much sort of light coming into the planet. But either way, we were done. And I moved then to Hastings and then to Portugal. And my idea was to build this little personal home and retreat center where people would come and do my metamorphic workshops. But 6 months after arriving here, I was in this giant wildfire in 2017 that burnt the whole center of Portugal. And it came over the hill. And I had a few friends with me, and we just grabbed sort of all the paperwork and computers and drove up to the village, which was concrete and protected. And we just watched as the fire burnt village after village. And so my friend and I just visualized white light around the house. And we, at one point, had to run into a bunker and just bunker down there for the evening. And when we emerged the next morning and went down to see if the house was still there, everything on the land had burnt, buildings, firewood obviously had all gone, a year's worth of firewood, a huge vehicle full of stuff from England. Everything had burnt except the house. It had all burnt to just 1 meter around the house. But after that, I was quite traumatized. I was very anxious. My nervous system was like a little kitten shaking. And I thought, why have I created this? And I started going back to the alchemical techniques that I had used with my colleague Ella and our first system. And I found myself in India at one point shortly after that, and I started buying these stones and placing them in these configurations and meditating with them. And I would see this pyramid, and there was all sorts of stuff going on in the pyramid. There were the Isis priestesses, and there was a Christic team who were the next octave of the Christ. And I was just getting all these transmissions. And then it became clear to me that I had been a junior priestess in the fall of Atlantis. And I had been entrusted with these crystals that held the alchemical wisdom of Atlantis, and I had taken them physically to Egypt. I wasn't a master alchemist at that point. I was just a sort of a student, but I had this job of carrying the stones. And since that time, which was around January 2018, I've continued to download a lot of alchemical technology, which is kind of new consciousness technology, which is a map of the energy system, the human system, and how it works. And it's very intricate and very detailed, but it's like precision surgery of our consciousness. So basically that's how I got from the start to where I am now.
Wow, what an amazing journey. There's so much I'd like to pick up on. So the thing that you did with your friend, that wasn't the source code alchemy. That's what you're doing now. Is that correct? So what was it? What was the thing that you, with your friends, that you were working with?
So with my friend Ella Owen, we called our system Sacred Life Alchemy.
Okay.
And we did the Mind Body Spirit Festival, a lot of workshops and clients, and had a lot of press. Actually, it was quite successful.
Oh, beautiful. And the because you spoke about, what that was and everything, but you didn't speak much about the metamorphic technique. And I'm just interested, first of all, to know a little bit about the metamorphic technique, and how did you think that, because I know you said it set you up for teaching and speaking and things like that, but did it inform the work that you did? Did any of that get carried through into your own system at all?
I think the fundamental concept from that technology was that our patterns, energy patterns, create our experience. I think that was the fundamental idea that I took forward.
Fabulous. And how, in that particular therapy, how did you work with that? The fact that the patterns carry our experience.
Yeah, metamorphic technique is an interesting one because it's a very simple stroking of the feet, hands, and head along points that correspond to our time in the womb, which is where we set up the blueprint for the life we're going to live. So what was interesting about it was quite user-friendly in that anybody could learn to do it, and it was not technical in any way. Although actually the teaching, the workshop was a little bit heady and a little bit conceptual, but it was very simple. And the idea was simply that when you were touching this blueprint for essentially your blueprint within the cells, you were acting as a catalyst to your life force, which then would evolve you. So you weren't directing the shift. You weren't saying, I want this or I want that. You were just saying, I know that my life force knows how to grow me. I'm just going to act as a catalyst with this simple touch. My life force will evolve me in its own way, in its own time. So as a layman's tool, it's really, I felt it was a very good one.
That sounds amazing. And then how did you integrate that, that awareness? You said it was the awareness that you took forward rather than necessarily the techniques. How did you integrate that, would you say, into the Sacred Life Alchemy and the work that you're doing now?
Well, it was this insight that the energy within us creates what happens externally, and that energy can be transformed. And it was a very strange one, because Ella and I had gone to visit a friend in Brighton, and it was on June 21st, 2008. And we sat down to work in the evening and just sort of unpick these little fledgling ideas that we were having about consciousness and how you could shift it and how it would shift reality. And then we looked out the window, And on Brighton seafront, which we could see from our window, there were all these fireworks going off. And it kind of felt like it was confirmation to us, like, bingo, you got it. You know, we knew that we had hit on something significant. And while perhaps other healers and alchemists had that awareness, for us, it was a eureka moment. And then it led to very quickly developing quite a sophisticated system. We were trying to reverse engineer enlightenment at one point. We were doing a lot of very deep body work to really transform the way the body ages and the health template that it holds and the beauty template it holds. So it felt very cutting edge for us. And yeah, it was very well received.
That sounds incredible. And I mean, it's very relevant, everything you're saying, you know, because this is New Earth podcast and we're really exploring, you know, what we're moving into. And I think these kind of technologies, I mean, you know, in a way, the world we've lived in the 3D, haven't we? That's what we've all been brought up, you know, working with the five senses. And then perhaps if you're a healer working with subtle senses, you know, your subtle hearing, your subtle seeing, you know, clairvoyance, all those kind of senses. But what you seem to be suggesting is going much beyond that. You know, it's going much beyond those subtle senses into whole other realms. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So do you want me to talk about, for example, the level at which I'm working, or what could be the future for humanity? Because
I think both, because I think it's very interesting as a way of looking at, you know, what we're moving into collectively and how we can be shifting as individuals, and, you know, the way we perceive the world, you know, the way we interact, all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure also people would like to hear more about how you work individually with your therapy as well.
So I'm basically working with a whole team of guides, and I'm working with earth grids and cosmic grids and a stargate. So all of these technologies kind of reveal themselves to me and reveal what they can offer in terms of their technological power. And I work with a pendulum. I also, when I work with a client, call in their spirit team. So their spirit team will give me the information I need to know about their matrix, like what needs correcting and so on. But my spirit team provides the power, the energy, and I'm like the technician. And the kind of technologies, just to give you an idea of a few different things, because there are so many. One might be that you might have people who, rather than drawing energy from source, they're going to draw energy from false power sources like internet, like gaming, like television, like sex, like food, like chocolate, shopping, gambling. And if you're drawing from these lower frequency power sources, you're not fully plugged in. So it's like an iPhone that's charging up to 20%. So that might be why they're not achieving something, because they don't have access to their full power energy. Other approaches might be, if there's a health condition, I will look at their health field, and within their health field, I can determine if there's trauma, if there are past life imprints where there were health issues which are being repeated, if there's karma, which is the reason that they're experiencing the health thing, so we could resolve the karma and bring in the karmic lessons. There might be curses, there might be akashic contracts, and so on. So within the consciousness of their health field, which creates their health, there's a lot of intricacy which you can go into and see what's going on and correct it. So that's the kind of work that I'm doing. It's very specific and very deep. In terms of what humanity is moving towards, I don't think that day-to-day people will be going into that much, because I'm a bit like a computer nerd, right? So not everybody in the new earth is going to be that interested in consciousness. But what I think is going to happen is that our ability to use consciousness will radically increase, so that we, for example, and just to give you a little example that of somebody I met recently, they had a garden, and they said their garden yield is incredible because they psychically communicate with the snails, and they tell them, you're allowed to eat the first row, but everything else you leave. So it's that kind of using consciousness to interface with reality for the best possible outcome for all, for example.
That's amazing. Yeah, because we are very limited in our communications at the moment. And I know that there's lots of people that work with animal communications, nature communications, you know, because the matrix of trees, for example, and that kind of thing. So it sounds like you're working with the earth grids as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you integrate those kind of, you know, that kind of communication when you're working with different kind of earth grids and that sort of thing?
Well, my earth grids are quite specific to my system. So I work with a grid called the Phoenix grid, and it is an inner earth grid of 6 etheric crystals on 6 power points in the earth, and they're linked by real crystals, so crystal beds that link them up. And then this one it's like a garbage bin, or it's able to absorb dark energies. And then I work with a cosmic grid, which is 228 real stars, physical stars, and 228 etheric stars. And this cosmic grid elevates. So anything of a cosmic nature is of high frequency and elevates. So if, for example, I have a client and we have something that is really stuck and it's not moving, I might place them inside this Phoenix and cosmic grid, because it's kind of the space of cleansing and elevating, and those are very powerful energies. So those are the kind of earth grids that I work with. And I've also worked with those earth grids when doing cleansing for the earth. For example, if I'm working with other groups of healers and we're doing a cleansing, and in my part I might put in the patriarchy or the old money system and put it in there for these energies to clear and then elevate.
Beautiful. Wow, this is incredibly powerful work you're doing, Dominique. And I know you've talked about your teams, you know, work. You said, I can't remember if it's in this podcast or when we've talked previously, but you work with teams. So can you tell me, you know, who your teams are, who you work with, and how you kind of connected with them?
Mm-hmm. So it was when I was in Goa, shortly after the fire, and I was really messed up. And I started placing these crystals. And then once I had this crystal grid, which in fact, I'm just going to show it to you because can you see that crystal grid plus my cup?
Just about. You might want to just turn it a little bit more. Yeah. No, that's it. Amazing.
So I call this grid Avraham, and this is the configuration of crystals that hold the frequency of the initial alchemical information that I received. And then when I was going up into the top of the pyramid that I mentioned, I got to a place which was called the sort of the Christic core. And this is the next octave of the Christ and the Magdalene. So as a team of divine masculine and divine feminine, but the next octave. So they're very high consciousness. Then I work with the Phoenix cosmic grids and then a Stargate. So it's the Stargate appeared when, after COVID, I was in India, and then suddenly within a week's time, I realized that flights were being canceled. It was like March 20th, and that I better get home. So I packed up all my stuff, and for some unknown reason, I packed my crystals into some boxes that I mailed home to myself with some Ayurvedic remedies. Well, they took many months to return home, and when they got back home, the Portuguese authorities would not let these Ayurvedic remedies into the country, so they sent them back. And then I was out of my mind, like, my crystals are gone. How am I gonna do my work? And then there was this download of symbols, and these symbols were in a circular fashion. And then I realized I don't need the crystals. They were holding the frequencies, but I can just do it with my consciousness. And so the Stargate appeared at that time as a circle. And I don't have my board, but I've made up a board with lots of symbols that I work with. And so again, the Stargate is a superpower technology. So when people are really having difficulty in clearing something, I might place them in the Stargate, or the pendulum might indicate, put them in the Stargate. Another way I use the Stargate is when I'm clearing archonic veils. So recently I was in Goa and I was pondering about these particular patterns that we all have that just don't shift, even when you're working on them consistently. For example, I'm constantly working on myself, constantly swapping sessions with other healers and so on. But yet there were some of my issues that were just not moving. And so this was my question. And what always happens is that I get woken in the middle of the night with the answer. And it was that there are these archonic implants. So the archons are kind of a race of star beings, but negative star beings, that have put these veils into us to keep us at a low frequency and low consciousness and low emotional state so that they can feed off of negativity and so on. And so to pull these archonic veils off and really free somebody up to heal the really challenging stuff, the Stargate is the tool that I use.
Amazing. And the symbols, are they based on sacred geometry or known symbols, or are they completely unique to you, the ones that have been downloaded?
They were just unique to me. And to be honest, I don't think that the symbols themselves are that important. It's like nothing is that important. The stones were not that important. They were a stepping stone in me understanding how the system worked and how to work with consciousness.
Amazing. You spoke about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and I know that you do a lot of work with the inner masculine and the inner feminine. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, and also tell us, how you feel we need to work with the masculine and feminine in order to step into New Earth? Because there's lots of talk about the divine feminine, and actually we need both. And certainly the work that I do, it's about acknowledging the feminine that's been suppressed, but it's really integrating and becoming holistic in having the two aspects come into better balance. Is that similar in the way that you're working?
Yeah, I mean, all of it is important. It reminds me of a man I met in Bali, and he said, everybody's talking about the divine feminine, but what about the masculine? And I guess what we're seeing in the world right now is a very distorted masculine. Like all the revelations about all the abuses are due to this distortion of the masculine. So what came to me recently is that we are all holding the energy of this distorted masculine. That is what's holding it in place. And when we transform that into the new masculine or the divine masculine within us, if we were to all do that, the patriarchy would just have nothing to stand on. It would just fall away. It wouldn't be upheld. And it's, the 1% versus the 99%. It's because we are energetically holding that frequency. So for me, the inner masculine is our inner template of masculine consciousness. And its effect is that, first of all, it affects how we function in the world, whether we're structured, boundaried, resilient, and all of those qualities of the divine, of the masculine. And secondly, it affects the kind of men that we bring into our life, either in terms of individual men or collective male structures like the tax man, the banking system, the government, the corporations, pharma, and all of that. So those male structures have an impact on our lives. But when we clear all the trauma from this field of our inner masculine, look, as multidimensional beings, we have been the patriarchy and we've been victims of the patriarchy. So all of that needs to be cleared, where we've been abusive and where we've been abused, all the trauma that's held in that field. And when we clear it all out and then hold the new consciousness masculine, it is the pathway to the new earth, basically. That energy, not only that energy, but that is a vital energy which assists us in awakening the new masculine, which helps construct the new earth, protect the new earth.
Amazing. And how do you see the journey with the feminine? How do you see that unfolding?
I guess for me, it's similar in that within the feminine, within this energetic imprint of the inner feminine within us, there's still going to be a lot of trauma. We're still carrying the old feminine. Trauma, ancestral imprints, past life imprints, karma, interference, wounds, all of that stuff that needs to be cleared. And then you need to bring in a high consciousness energy of the divine feminine. And then again, if we're living that, we're birthing the new earth.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of the feminine, you know, because we've lived in a very masculine world, and we don't really know what it is. So it's that exploring of things like collaboration, you know, which is you know, competition is more masculine, collaboration is more feminine. So it's kind of exploring all these new, you know, intuition being, you know, analytical being more masculine, intuitive being more feminine. So it's kind of exploring all those aspects, and I think that's why the feminine's talked about so much, because we don't know what it is. But you know, in a way, we need to rediscover both, because the masculine has been out of balance, and it's that kind of having a new relationship with both in a way.
Absolutely.
So come into healthy expression.
Yeah, both are vitally needed for this rebirth.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to change tack slightly, because I actually had a beautiful session with Dominique a week or so ago, and Dominique was working on my purpose, and I understand that's quite something that you you know, that you work with. That's a significant part of your work. And I know, you know, in the New Earth, this idea of coming into our unique contribution and really, you know, following our path, you know, rather than just having a day job and then, you know, sort of just to earn money, it's much more about, you know, living what we came here to do. So I'm really interested to see how you can support people to really get on their life path and really find their purpose.
So my work is not at all about sort of coaching or giving them techniques, because that's just not my expertise. I work just in the background. So in terms of one-to-one, I would work specifically with whatever the person brings, whether they've got you know, whether they're holding a lot of suffering for humanity or for women or for life or whatever it is. I would clear it so that they can reveal their purpose and activate whatever's needed so that they can be in alignment with their divine blueprint, their highest timeline, their highest self, their highest purpose. How I support it is I do the monthly free sessions every month, and that's, you know, everybody's welcome to come and just experience a personal upgrade that way. So I think it's like every month we hone in on something specific, and everything adds up to clearing us out and bringing us more in alignment with ourselves. And when we're in alignment with ourselves, we naturally express our purpose. That would be my approach.
Amazing. So what we'll do is we'll put Dominique's contact details underneath this video, so if anyone wants to get in contact with Dominique, they can do, website, etc. But we'll also put the link to these free sessions. We've just had one, haven't we? There was just one yesterday, so it'll be in about oh, hold on a minute, we'll be in about 2 weeks time, won't it? Yeah, because this
well, I've put the replays, so there are 4 replays up already.
Okay, fabulous. So you'll be able to access that free information. So I'm just really interested. I mean, you talk about being an alchemist, and your first therapy was Sacred Life Alchemy and now Source Code Alchemy. What does alchemy mean to you?
I guess it's, for me, the transmutation of consciousness from lower frequency consciousness to high frequency consciousness.
And what would you define as lower frequency, and what would you define as higher frequency?
Well, when we're in shock, when we're in trauma, when we're in pain, when we're wounded, when we're carrying old stuff, that's going to keep us in a lower frequency. And when we're in joy and bliss and love, we're in a higher frequency.
So basically what you're doing is you're working with the shadow. A lot of it, it's like the shadow aspects, you know, the aspects or the traumatized aspects and things like that. Is that correct? So that, and then you're, because my understanding of alchemy, because I've done a lot of work with the Taoist master, Master Mantak Chia, and we work with inner alchemy. and we work with the organs and really looking into the organs. But what's really beautiful is, I mean, anything like that, any kind of stuck emotions, any of that kind of what would be classed as negative energy, it is still energy. So it can be recycled and reused, and then adds fuel to the fire of joy and those things. So it's almost like not something that has to be got rid of, but just transmuted. Is that a similar kind of journey with your work?
Well, generally, I release whatever needs to be released and send it up to Creator to be repurposed as love and light. And then we bring in new codes of light, diamond light codes, cosmic codes, and using the technologies to just uplift and realign them. So it is really like different things can go on. You can clear stuckness and remove the energy of stuckness. And then you can refigure what got knocked out during trauma. For example, when somebody goes through a trauma in this or in any other lifetime, if they're still carrying it, their energy body can be leaking energy, tears, drains, they're leaking energy. And then, of course, they don't have the power to create whatever it is they want to create in their lives. So it'll be clearing, it'll be repair work, it'll be recoding. Sometimes you're moving something out of phase. So you might be in phase with suffering. The person presents, and I just basically work with whatever they present in their consciousness. So if somebody's in phase with suffering, then I need to shift them out of phase with that. Or maybe they're looking to be in phase with love. So I'll put them into phase with love, the energy of love or creativity. So it's very technological from my perspective.
It sounds amazing work, and certainly that was my experience. So the light codes and that you're sort of downloading and channeling, are they kind of updating all the time? Because as the planet is raising, as Mother Earth's raising her vibration, and I understand with the solar flares and everything that's going on at the moment, the energy that's being downloaded is getting stronger and stronger. So has that shifted your work significantly? Are you finding you kind of the tools that are available to you are being upgraded all the time?
Yeah, that's it. Like I'll be doing a correction and then suddenly I'll say something that I've never said before. Like I'll bring in some new light codes and I'll go, oh, what just happened there? Or the other day, I'm actually coming to present at a conference in Glastonbury. And last week we all got together, 27 of these wonderful teachers. And during the opening meditation, I saw the Stargate, which my Stargate it's two of them, and they had only moved circularly like this. And then suddenly, when I was in the company of all these high consciousness people, the Stargate started shifting in a sphere. And I was like, hold on a second, what's just...
That's yeah. So activated. Yeah, that's so interesting. So I think what would be really interesting to talk about next was, for people at home, obviously, if they're wanting to kind of connect with you, then you're, as you say, you're like the computer geek of all these technologies and everything. But for people at home that perhaps this is a whole new world for them, but they'd like to, for example, start communicating with nature a bit more, or get in contact with intuition, or start to develop tools so that they can raise their consciousness and perhaps shift their reality, because I know you've talked a lot about how our inner experience shifts our outer reality. What first steps would you encourage people to do or to make?
Yeah, for me, the first and most fundamental thing to do is to call in your spirit team and develop a relationship with your spirit team, and just try to, you may identify them as sort of, angels, archangels, maybe some ancestors or light beings. So you might just call them in generically, like calling in the spirit team. And as that relationship develops, just see who appears. But develop that conversation and tell them what you need, what you want. So for me, that's fundamental. I use protection. I know that there's some healers who say, it's all consciousness, it's all love, so don't use any protection. I personally use protection, protecting myself because I'm a sensitive, protecting from things like 5G, chemtrails, toxicities, interference, and so on. And because I've had experiences where there's been interference or psychic attack, and you can feel it right away, and it really pulls me off course. I'm wanting to create strong boundaries. So those are my two sort of, that's my morning routine. And then setting intentions in the morning and just being very clear about what you want from life. That would be the basic starting points, I think.
Amazing. So what you want to bring in.
I think the thing is that there are teams for everything. So if you hurt yourself, call in your healing team. You don't have to have connected with them before. Just call in your healing team and just trust the body, that the body can repair itself. I remember when I broke an arm, and I was just blessing my arm and saying, I'm so sorry that you took the hit for the whole system that obviously needed to learn something, and you're the one to have to go through it. But I was just sending it so much love and calling in the healing teams. And I remember a girlfriend, we were in Bali, and in Bali, there are these huge gutters that are about 1 meter deep. And we were talking, she backed into it and scratched up her leg. And right away, I called in the healing teams and I said, please pull all trauma out of the body, out of the cells. Please repair the body. So you can work with this just with commands and with intentions, because we live in a quantum universe which will respond to your intention. So just be clear about what you want and know that the universe is miraculous. It's magical. And just use your magic. It's using your imagination, which is your portal into that dimension, to activate what you need: healing, abundance, love.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting because I think it's very easy to forget to ask, isn't it? You know, to forget that we are assisted and to forget to ask. So the next question is, because I'm interested, you know, people at home, like for yourself, you know, calling in your teams, and you have faith, you have belief. But how would, you know, people that haven't kind of worked with healing and perhaps don't necessarily believe in those kind of miracles, what would be a first step for them to start sort of shifting into, you know, being able to trust these kind of processes?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? You know, if you don't believe, you're putting up a wall. So you're closing yourself off to the miracle dimension. And the miracle dimension is just the dimension that is beyond belief. It's a miracle because you didn't think it could happen, and it did happen. But actually, it's just an extended part of reality. So you could just say to yourself, I'm open to magic and miracles, and just see what happens.
Open to transformation and healing.
Open to transformation and healing, open to love. I'm open to whatever you invite.
Beautiful. So it's that those steps in starting to build a new awareness, you know, of how to be in the world. So I know that you've got lots of tools. Are you happy to share any today? Is there any kind of tools that you would like to share, or has it been more through the consciousness shifts, or do you have any kind of techniques or anything that you're able to share with us today?
You're talking about sort of day-to-day things that you can do.
Yeah, because I know you talked about sort of sharing alchemical tools, but I don't know if that's more, when you'd written that, I don't know if you meant it more in terms of, you know, the tools that you've been saying, so sort of believe in miracles, you know, and these are you know, these are very powerful tools for transformation, or whether I didn't discuss with you whether you actually wanted to share a technique of some kind.
Yeah, well, apart from calling in your spirit team and maybe calling in your protection team, calling in your healing team, opening up to magic and miracles, you can do things like cleanse and bless your food, for example. So before you have any food, you could really cleanse it of all toxicities, basically. And then bless it so that that food is really golden when it goes into your system. You can also clear a space by just calling in the teams that can clear your space, and clear the energy of a house by clearing all the energies that are in the house, all the energies of all people who've ever walked in the house, been in the house, built the house, owned the house, and clearing and releasing all the energies of neighbors, clearing all the energies of the walls, the floors, the ceilings, the water pathways, the electricals, and then just bringing in golden light, bringing in diamond light codes, bringing in whatever whatever you're inspired. And actually, if you just relax and you're wanting to work this way, probably something's going to pop into your head, and you'll say, oh, I want to use the violet codes, for example, and that will be the right kind of technology for you to use. So it's really about being playful and knowing that everything is consciousness and can be affected. Like, for example, if I take supplements in the morning, I used to take, okay, I need 2 of this and 3 of this and da da da. And now I've just decided to just put 1 of each, because the body does respond to something physical in it. But then I just say, teams, please adjust the amount, the dosage, to be the correct dosage for my body, for example. And I also add in, and please add in or remove anything that is needed by my body. So you could do that without actually putting in any physical supplements.
Yeah, because I guess people need to be careful at home. Like, you're very in tune with your body, but I guess people need to be careful at home if they're, you know, taking supplements and things to make sure it's, you know, that good quantities and things like that. So one of the things I wanted to talk with you about was you spoke about these times being a catalyst for New Earth. You know, and lots of people are really struggling at the moment. You know, lots of people are going through huge change, transition. You know, it's a lot of, you know, the whole world being turned upside down kind of idea. Do you have any guidance for people that are perhaps feeling like that at the moment?
I would say 2 things. The first thing is that when I was teaching metamorphic technique, our view of what's going on in the world is that we are now stepping out of the adolescent phase of humanity. The adolescent phase of humanity is one where there are all these authority figures who basically dictate how life is run. Then we go into this cocoon of transformation, and the model is caterpillar transforming into butterfly. So it's the same being, but functioning at a totally level of vibration and consciousness. But in order to make that transition, you need to break everything down first. Everything in the caterpillar breaks down. So when you look at that transformational process, caterpillar actually gorges itself on 5 times its body weight. So it's kind of gorging itself on unconsciousness. And I guess we could say we're gorging ourselves on the mind. We're in a state of mental illness, which is the last days of mind. And then we go into the cocoon and everything starts falling apart. So it's for the ego, it's very challenging. But actually, we are in this process of transformation, which involves this reconstruction, using all the old energies to become the new. And then we're moving into the mature phase of humanity, which is heart-led, and which is about community and connection. And it's about taking responsibility for our lives. So they're no longer in this new mature phase, authority figures that take care of us. Like in the old phase, we would not take care of the body and then go to the authority figure, which is the doctor, and say, please fix it. Well, in this new phase, you have to take responsibility for your own body. You've got to exercise it and feed it healthy food and so on. So that is the transition. And the second point is that I think we are being pushed so much that we are going to have to use our consciousness to elevate. We are going to, you know, we're so much in a corner that we are going to have to use magical means, alchemical means, consciousness to transmute, for example, the toxicity within the vaccine, and just the toxicity of all of life that's being presented right now. So I think it will catalyze this kind of alchemical nature that we can access.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Thank you. Are there any last things that you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked you about or covered? Because I'm not so familiar with your work. So it's been really educational enlightenment for me as well.
Well, I'm working at the moment on the body, on new templates of health, new templates of aging, and new templates of beauty, because I think because of the archonic veils and other influences, we've been really suppressed. And I think the body's our vehicles. So it's mega important while we're in this dimension. And so I'm going to be working and offering some work in March to completely reconstruct and reconfigure how we do health, aging, and beauty. So that's a new and exciting exploration for me.
And I mean, aging is an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, do we just age because we're told we're going to age? You know, it's an interesting one, and or is it just because we watch other people? Oh, this is what people of 70 look like. This is what they do. You know, that then we kind of we're limiting our consciousness. You know, because it's you know, in a way, if the body can heal itself, you know, it's got the potential to heal itself. You know, in a way that doesn't change, you know, with age. You know, we've got the potential to kind of keep healing ourselves. You could look at aging as getting behind with healing. You know, that's one way of looking at it. So, yeah. You know, if we can catch up, then potentially, you know, because I mean, things like the stomach, you know, the lining of the stomach is renewing itself. I think is it every 7 days or something? I forget the numbers. You know, so really, you know, we have a brand new stomach every however many days it is. So how any kind of issues with the stomach, how come it's not gone in 7 days? And it's because we're carrying that consciousness awareness forward. So you know, it's very interesting conversations, isn't it? Aging, there's potential to kind of break a lot of mindsets. You know, we've all got a lot of conditioning around, you know, what happens to us as we grow older.
Yeah, and we're really plugged into these collective fields. You know, we're sort of entrained into this consciousness of this is what aging looks like, and then the cancers appear, and then people start dropping off, and so on. And I'm not really buying into it. I feel that there's that the truth of our consciousness is that it's unlimited, and it does express itself in anomalies in certain cultures where they age completely differently. But I'd like to bring that into the collective and shift our mindset and our frequency around aging, health, and beauty.
And you work with groups, do you, rather than individuals?
Well, this work, yeah, I do work with individuals one-to-one, and this specific work I'm going to do is a workshop, a one-day workshop in March, and I'll repeat it and probably make it available that people can, you know, get it as a replay or something.
That sounds amazing, because what I'm finding, I work with a lot of groups, you know, around creating New Earth and looking at these consciousness shifts as well, you know, that we're going through as a collective, individually and as a collective. And what I find is, I mean, I love the work that I do with individuals, and sometimes that's very necessary. But with some of these themes, you know, that have come from collective consciousness, you know, for example, original sin, you know, the belief I'm a sinner, you know, that is a collective consciousness belief that we've all inherited. Almost like working with it in a group, you know, with those kind of things can make it more powerful. I don't know if that's similar with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think group work is really powerful.
Yeah.
Group work is really powerful, and individual work is really specific to the person's consciousness. So both are really
necessary. Yeah, both are necessary. I would totally agree. Okay, well, I think we'll finish up for today, unless there's anything else, last minute things you want to kind of that we haven't covered. Was there anything else, or are we pretty much covered everything today?
Yeah, I think we're good. It was great speaking with you.
Yeah, it's been a real delight. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and hopefully people will, you know, come and access your free workshops and your workshop that you've got coming up in March. That sounds absolutely fabulous. Many blessings, and thank you so much for chatting today.
Thanks so much for this, Sarah. It's amazing.
Thank you everyone for listening. We hope that you've enjoyed. Bye for now.